Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us with the Quintech Association. And we've got 3 of their members here. It's a great organization, started with a few, but certainly has become representative of the technology sector that exists in our community. Delilah will be able to speak to that a little bit more shortly. Anyway, just a couple of housekeeping things for you on behalf of the Chamber. It's set up in webinar mode, so you won't be able to see your video. You won't be able to speak unless Delilah at some point decides that you should be able to. But please, in the meantime, the Q&A is open and feel free to post your questions in there. What's really great about that feature is that there's an upvote. So if you like a question that's been asked, if you click the thumbs up, that'll move it up the list. So rather than having to type out your whole question again, if you see something that looks like what you want, go ahead with that. And I think at this point we are recording this, so we will make the video available later. And if you have friends or family who would like to watch it, I'm sure there are going to be some interesting tips and tricks that you'll wish everybody knew. So Delilah, to you.
Thanks, Jill. I'm actually just going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got a couple of slides that I wanted to get on the go here. And can everybody see my thank you quintech.org screen? Okay. So I just wanted to thank you first, Jill, for the opening, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks to the Chamber of Commerce, the Belleville Chamber of Commerce, for their generosity of hosting today's session, as well as the Quinney West and Prince Edward County Chambers for getting the word out. So I just want to start with a little bit of history about the Quinney Technology Association, which you'll hear us refer to as either the QTA or Quintech throughout the next hour. The QTA is actually modeled after the Quinney Manufacturers Association. So our very first advertised meetup in February of 2018 included having several people from the QMA talk about their own model and how the collaboration between manufacturing and tech makes sense. We really can't thank the QMA enough for their support throughout the development of our own processes and how to move the association ahead. One of the steps that was taken for member engagement included sending out surveys to determine member needs. We then held meetups with different presenters every other month, and these meetups have given the opportunity to the organization, the members as a whole, to learn more about one another. We presented at Capers in early 2018 to introduce the QTA locally. Also in 2018, we attended the Mars Talent Marketplace, which is an event in Toronto in which we had a booth and had the opportunity to display the tech sector in our area. It was a very busy day with nonstop conversations with interested people stopping to hear about the QTA. We've also been working with Loyalist College to provide information about skill sets that members require to fill roles within their companies. We continue to work with the college to have, viable programs that support those needed skill sets. In 2019, we had the Dean of the School of Applied Science, Skills and Technology speak to our members about how important our association is and how we can build a symbiotic relationship. At the beginning of this year, we held a couple more online sessions. One included Jim Pine, CAO for Hastings County, and Lisa Severson, Director of Communications of the Eastern Regional Broadband Network. Together, they spoke about the Eastern Ontario Regional Network in different phases and project updates. Avia Peters was our guest for our most recent online meeting, and she spoke about Communitech. Communitech is relative to the Kitchener-Waterloo area, and it's been running for over 25 years. As I mentioned, the QTA was modeled after the QMA, which is a very successful organization in its own right, and it made sense that as a group, we now look at the successful organizations that are specific to our field. The QTA has taken great strides in just over 2 years, and all of that, pardon me, could not have happened without support from all of our members and so many community organizations, and I've only named a few here. The Quinney Economic Development Commission is an extremely valuable partner. They provide administrative and coordination support for the QTA. As I mentioned, the QTA is modeled after the QMA, and that model provides a familiar forum for businesses in the technology sector to network, share information, develop best practices, and provide a unified voice for local industry. With QEDC providing support for both organizations, they stay updated on local trends, opportunities, and issues impacting the sector and individual businesses, as well as maintaining close links with local leaders who act as ambassadors to assist in the recruitment of new industry to our local region, the Bay of Quinte. QEDC provided initial support and guidance for the formation of the QTA, and they remain a strong supporter and partner. Excuse me. Our association consists of people in all different types of positions in the tech sector. This list is not exhaustive, but some are great examples of some of the membership diversity. I know it's a lengthy list, but I'm going to move on. So the association currently has 96 companies in the directory. It just makes sense that we continue talking about how big the tech sector is in our area, and part of the reason why we're here today is to make our own community aware of that. So once again, welcome everyone. If anyone's joining us today who happens to be in the tech field, please go to the website, which is on the slide, and provide your information under the Be Connected section. Please add in the comment section that you would like to become a member. Also, if you're looking to connect with a tech company for any needs that you or your company may have, please go to the same section of the site, Be Connected, and provide some details in the comments as to what it may be that you're looking for. Please welcome our presenters, Ken Dixon, President Snap 360, Dave Vernon, Cybersecurity Officer, Loyalist College, and Bruce May, VP of IT NESA Technologies. As Jill mentioned, there will be an opportunity for a couple of minutes for Q&A after each presentation. So Ken, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, we can get started.
Thank you, Delilah, for that great introduction, for the kind introduction and about the QTA. It's great to be here with everyone. And I know how hard everyone's working to look after your customers, your employees, and our community. So it hardly seems fair that the internet and the websites we count on have become such a threat to all that work. But you can protect yourself and make the internet a safer place for everyone. We're going to take a look at just how you can do that, starting with your website. Well, I have a website. Well, we all know the great website helps build your business. Left unprotected, however, it's a sitting duck, a juicy target for hackers and their disastrous attacks. So what's the menace? Bots, swarming like these birds. Even as I speak and as we sit here, your website is under constant attack, as is your email, your phone, even your home computer and smart doorbell. Like the flocks of crazed birds in Hitchcock's movie, automated agents are pecking ferociously at your website, searching for cracks, testing for weaknesses, while others pound away with relentless brute force password attacks. Think I'm kidding? Here's the threat report from Avira. As you can see, the highest growth rate is script malware. Bots looking to invade your website and turn it into a zombie. Their zombie. A zombie that not only wreaks havoc on your site and potentially infects your visitors, but keeps spreading itself, just like the COVID virus spreads from human to human. Why do the hackers do it? You may be asking yourself. Can't those teenage nerds find something else to do? Well, I've got news for you. It's not the teen nerds. Cybercrime pays big, really big, more profitable than illegal drugs. In fact, hold on to your hats. Cybercrime has become a $1 trillion industry, Andrew, $1 trillion. On average, 30,000 new websites are hacked every day. And worse, according to IBM, on average, it takes 280 days to identify a breach. This means that malware can be doing a lot of damage inside your website unseen until suddenly it gets obvious. But I can hear people saying, come on, hackers don't care about little old me. Well, you'd be right in thinking that criminal syndicates and nation states limit their focus to high-value sites such as defense and intelligence agencies, utilities, banks, large corporations. But that doesn't mean you're safe. By now, being programming geniuses, they've developed highly sophisticated digital robots, called bots for short, sold openly in the dark web to unsophisticated but equally greedy people. They're scanning relentlessly 24/7. Sooner or later, they'll find you, as they have found so many others. So where do the bots come from? Botnets, networks of hijacked computers and websites. You know, Back in the noughts, I was stunned to hear of botnets containing 30, 50,000 computers. Nowadays, that's chicken feed. The big guys control networks of hundreds of thousands, even millions of computers. So how do they attack? Well, no website, they'll reach you all the same. Phishing emails are a favorite. You've seen these in your inbox, I'm sure, and hopefully stayed safe by deleting them immediately instead of opening the attachment or clicking on the links. What can they do when they hit your website? Well, there are many different kinds of bots, each containing one or more warheads. Email spam broadcasting, disseminating spyware, distributed denial of service attacks. That's where like you might get 100 or 200,000 or more websites or computers focusing incoming hits on one website, which of course overwhelms it and takes it offline. And that's happened several times a year. Ad fraud, spam advertising, that's more likely to affect you. And we'll circle back to that in a minute. Bitcoin money, I love that, right? They get a factory going on your website, making themselves tens of thousands or millions of dollars all on your dime. And of course, they're building a botnet, making you the next node in their network. Finally, defacement is perhaps the most harmless, except for the black eye in your reputation. Here's some examples. Here's one probably by Al-Qaeda, another one almost certainly by Al-Qaeda, and this one's my favorite. This is the website of the president of the European Union who got invaded by Mr. Bean. Well, I'm sure Mr. Bean himself was behind this, but pretty cute, eh? Worst of all, you don't really want your website coming up like this. But the menace is not always in plain sight. Hackers, once burrowed in, can hide things within your web pages to suit their evil money-grubbing purposes, like spam advertising. These are links injected and hidden in your website so that you may not discover until after you begin wondering why your Google ranking has dropped through the floor. Something like this, hidden in a browser but visible if you look in the source code. This is an example of an e-commerce website linked from obfuscated code found buried in a hack page. This example is in China, but I've seen them in North America in lots of places. The way they do it is, this makes them a lot of money because they get paid per click, and all these clicks by the bots add up to a lot of money for the people selling those ads. But you might say, so what? It's not visible to normal visitors. Well, the flood of unwanted traffic could swell your hosting bill, and worse, it'll get your site blacklisted. Then watch your search engine rankings drop until eventually that red warning takes over your home page. But don't despair, there is hope. There are ways you can successfully defend yourself against most all attacks and enjoy all the benefits of your website. To see how, let's take a look at how these barbarians invade your website. Then we'll see how they can bounce them away. So what are they going after? Here are some key vulnerabilities. I can't get into the weeds today, except to say that breaching any of these can give the bad guys total control over your website. And rest assured, the bots will be poking at all of these vulnerabilities. So where's the vaccine? What about my web host? Aren't they supposed to be keeping my website secure? Well, I hate to break it to you, but your host's responsibilities are very basic. They have one important job: keeping your website online and open to the internet. That's it. They don't mess with your website's content or programming or security. You don't want them to. Does that surprise you? Well, it surprised a lot of people who woke up one morning to find that their site had been seriously hacked. Your web developer, on the other hand, looks after its design, content, and programming, and thus its security. Unfortunately, not enough of them take security seriously enough. Have a talk with your designer. Find out what they're doing to keep your website secure. Hold their feet to the fire. That's especially important for WordPress sites. Many people have chosen WordPress as a platform for their website, And usually that's a wise decision because of its rapid deployment, saves you money, advanced features, versatility, and enables you to manage the content yourself. The downside is that it's become so popular that it's become a prime target of hackers, especially because so many WordPress sites are not kept up to date. It's not so much that WordPress itself is so vulnerable, it's all the plugins. Thousands offered by independent developers available. Everything from calendars to e-commerce to form builders, scrolling windows, and many more. And many of these developers are far less sophisticated than the hackers who keep finding their vulnerabilities. So it's vital for WordPress and its plugins to be constantly kept up to date. Make sure your web developer is doing that for you. Also, very important, installing a WordPress firewall such as Wordpress is a powerful, no-brainer solution. Configured properly, it can repel brute force password attacks, screen out most botnet attacks, scan files for malware, and provide automatic zero-day vulnerability patches. Perhaps you've been hacked already. Hopefully not. Hopefully you're not one of the 4 to 5 million news sites per week that Google discovers to have been hacked. How can you check? Well, it's not so hard. It's easy to check your website anytime against a blacklist. mxtoolbox.com, great site. You can check your website against 100 blacklists in one go. Just type in your domain name and find out. Here, we can see that the Quinney Technology Association is nice and clean. And what about Google itself? Well, you can check their black book. Worth it. Just type your domain name into Google's safe browsing database and see for yourself. Here again are the quintech.org results. Again, nice and clean. So that's a long URL there, but if you just Google transparency report Google, you'll find it, and you can check your own site. So what can you do after you've found that you're there or you don't want to be in there in the blacklist? Can you log into your website with a short and simple password? Not good. Take a look inside your WordPress admin console. Any alerts for outstanding patches? Not good. Does your website allow uploads of private documents? Powerful feature. But check to see if you can bring one up simply by typing in its file name. For example, mydomain.com/folder/documentname.pdf. Unfortunately, this happens all the time. People think that their board minutes or whatever are secure, and they're just sitting out there floating, indexed by Google. Anyone can get them. Finally, check to make sure that if you've already been hacked. Often that's not apparent until the damage is done. So check ahead of time. And if you're clean, great. Most importantly, hire the right team in the first place. Here are some of the most important things that your web developer can do to keep your site secure. Install Wordpress or other firewall. Keep private documents private and involved. Require strong passwords for access to private areas. Keep your WordPress up to date. Have I mentioned this before? So important. Keep your WordPress up to date, and best have your developer do that and give them a budget, because they should be doing it every couple of weeks, because there's always updates in there. If they fall behind, you'll get hacked. And finally, scan regularly for malware through your admin console. So to sum up, the bad news is we're all targets for the hackers' bots, and getting hit is bad for business, obviously. But the good news is you can protect yourself with some basic precautions and security checks. No programming required. Just make sure your web developer is doing their job. Keep safe, stay safe, and make the internet safer for everyone. Done all that? Say hello to a new day. So thank you for staying with me. Now, if I haven't gone over time, I'll be happy to answer some questions, or you can email me confidentially afterwards, and I'll do my best to assist.
Thanks so much for that, Ken. No, you have not gone over time. That's perfect. We have no questions in the Q&A section at this point in time. I have a feeling that people are absorbing a lot of the information that you've just provided. And for a lot of people, we have to remember that when this information is new and they see the staggering numbers, that they kind of want to absorb that a little bit, and then they may present some questions afterwards.
Sure, and I think Delilah, you could say they could email me the questions, or they might want to just email Jill at the Chamber of Commerce with questions, not only on my presentation, but the ones that are following from Dave and Bruce.
Right, and using the quintech.org site as well, and using the comments
Yes.
section in there to be connected. We'll make sure that whatever questions come up can get directed to the right person. So,
Right.
Thanks
Thank
again,
you.
Ken. Appreciate it. Dave, I believe you're up next.
All right, let me just bring up my information here. Okay.
Okay, we just want to make sure that you're speaking up a little bit, Dave. I'm having a little bit of difficulty hearing you.
Sorry about that. I get a bit close to my microphone.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay. And you see my screen share okay?
Yes, we do.
All right, excellent. So everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about how you can secure your business and why you should secure your business. To start quickly, you may be wondering who I am. My name is Dave Vernon. I'm the Cybersecurity Officer at Loyalist College. I'm a member of the Quinney Technology Association. I worked in various aspects of IT for over 20 years, desktop support, infrastructure, security, done a lot of different stuff. And I've spent most of my life living and working here in the Quinney region. And in my college days, I did own a smaller than small business, tiny little business. So although I do have a bit of business experience in commercial entities in my past roles, now I do not work for a place that can sell you anything. So what I'm here to tell you today, I'm not trying to sell you any services. This is just purely for your information, and I hope it helps. We're going to talk about a few things today. Here's the quick agenda. We're going to talk about, are cyber threats really a concern for Quinney-based SMBs? We're going to talk about what we mean by cyber threats. I'll show you a couple of quick real-world examples. And I'm going to tell you about 4 things that you can do now, today, to protect your business. And please do stick around. Most of those things are either low cost or no cost. And I think you'll be interested to see the common theme between Ken's, mine, and Bruce's. There's some things that we all touch in, and hopefully that will sort of give you an idea of the value of these things. So the question, should my business worry? And the short answer is yes, flat and simple, yes. We have found through a study through the CFIB that 1 in 20 small businesses are victims of cyber fraud. That covers companies that are in construction, manufacturing, wholesale, basically every industry. Don't think that you are immune just because you're a small business in a relatively small city. If you have financial assets, if you have customer information, employee information, maybe business intellectual property, all of those things are valuable targets for hackers. As well, relationships are valuable for targets for hackers. You may not be the final target. You may just be a pathway. Many of you will probably remember the 2013 breach against Target, the mega corporation in the United States. That attack was successful because the attacker was able to get in via a third-party HVAC contractor. And of course, the other thing to keep in mind is some cyber threats are just random. If you can send 1 million messages for pennies and you get a 1% uptake, you're still successful as a hacker. So what threats are out there? What do we mean by cyber threats? I'm going to talk about a few different types here. This is by no means an exhaustive list, and there's no formal definitions of these. So the categories you may hear about today through the 3 of us may be a little bit different from what you see in a Toronto Star article, something like that. But this is an overview to get you an idea. The first one that I want to talk about is BEC, which stands for Business Email Compromise. This is quite simply where an attacker uses a medium, typically email, to contact your company to trick them into sending either goods or payments. Typically, you get an email saying, hey, we worked with it before, we've got a new bank account. Can you please update your accounts payable information to this new bank account? So now when you're paying your legitimate invoice, you're sending money to the wrong location. We've also seen, particularly in the US, where an attacker will send you a fake purchase order. You will deliver groups to a new warehouse. The attacker takes the physical equipment out, takes off with them, and you don't find out until the net 30 comes back from your supplier asking you for money for things you've never ordered. As well, we're seeing similar attacks through employees with direct deposit changes, where an attacker will pretend to be an employee, email your payroll department with a new bank account number so that you're depositing their payroll information into a bank. By the time it's discovered, that money is long gone and usually untraceable. Next type of attack that a lot of people don't consider is insider attacks. So this can be things like ex-employees or people who are looking to exploit a company from people on the inside. This is a real deal. Do not discount this. This is actually one of the most dangerous attacks and one of the hardest to defend against. By nature of business, you have to trust your employees. So keep in mind, particularly if an employee leaves in unpleasant circumstances, how are you protecting your business? What do they have access to? Next one is phishing. Ken spoke a little bit about that a few minutes ago. There's lots of definitions, but generally speaking, the idea behind phishing is someone uses an email to trick you to think that you're someone else. Most of the time, this is commonly used to try to get your passwords. You can see on the screen there, I have an example of one that we actually received at the Loyalist. This is a genuine screenshot. The part I blurred out was the recipient's actual email address, but you can see the Microsoft logo is correct, the wording is correct, the form looks identical to a legitimate one. In this case, when you fill out your password and hit continue, instead of logging into Microsoft, you're actually just giving your password to the hacker. They then use that to further attacks onto the next person. And the big one, I'm sure we have all heard about it. I'm sure we're all sick of hearing about it, but ransomware. If you haven't heard about ransomware, this is a special type of malware that gets on your computer systems and encrypts or it scrambles all of your data so that you cannot access it until you pay it back. Newer variants of this will actually also threaten to publish your data. So maybe you have backups, so you're not going to pay the ransom because you can get your data back. Well, now they can use this publishing to try to threaten you. Your backups will not protect you against publishing. In fact, the current versions of ransomware are actually skipping the encryption method because they know people are starting to get wise to that and just jump right ahead to threatening to disclose the information. Depending on your industry, that can be a huge concern. A couple of real world examples, and I admit I would love to give you some examples of some very small businesses, but of course, the smaller the business are, the less likely they are to make the news. And of course, no business likes to have their name in the news, so typically they don't disclose it quite as commonly. But you can see here's an example from the city of Ottawa, where the treasurer was tricked via an email compromise, and they wire transferred $130,000 to the attacker. They only discovered this later because the attacker came back and asked for another $150,000. This is an example from a school in Cape Cod in the United States. In this case, hackers got into their computer and were able to install malware on their computers. They took $800,000 US. At the time of this article, they had only been able to recover $300,000. So that's a $500,000 loss. And think about what that means for your business, whether you'd be able to absorb a $500,000 loss. And finally, I just wanted to show you a couple of these. These are businesses that have security cameras or IP cameras in their office building. There's a lot of times that people will forget that these need to be secured as well. So these, I've got a few screenshots that I'll show you, only 3 of them. These were all taken yesterday. This are just public websites. I didn't hack into anyone. I didn't, steal any passwords or anything like this. There's nothing stopping you yourself from going to look at these right now. Here's the inside of some sort of bakery. You can see the employee in the pink outfit at the back working away. Here's one of an insurance company in New York City. You may be wondering how I know it's an insurance company in New York City. In the upper right-hand corner, you can see where I blurred out, that was the physical address of this location. So once I had the physical address, I was able to look that up, find out the name of the business, the insurance broker, what they do. You can see just to the back there, there's the front door looking out onto the street. And then here's a disturbing one. So this is obviously a childcare center that also has a camera up. presumably so parents can check on their children. I have blurred all the faces of these children, but there's nothing stopping anyone from the world from going to this camera right now to watch these go. So you need to think about devices like this inside of your office as well, and whether you want those to be properly secured, whether you're willing to accept the risk. So looking at those, the question is, how do you protect your business? I've got 4 simple things that you can do today that I'd really encourage you. The first one, as strange as it sounds, is just to build security awareness into your business. Leadership has to take it seriously. If you're the owner, if you're a manager, you need to make sure that you are sort of showing that this is important to your business. Support to your employees, like Ken actually just mentioned with your web developers, make sure that you're giving budget into the updates. Most basic cybersecurity controls are inexpensive and easy. Do stuff like an inventory. Do you know what computers you have? Do you know where your data is stored? Who has access to your passwords? Those things don't cost anything to do ahead of time. The second thing you can do is to use strong passwords and credentials. Make sure you're not using passwords that can be easily guessed. So don't use your business name, your spouse's name, your children's name, nothing like that. Don't use passwords that are reused. So that means if you use a password for your business's email account, don't also use that for your bank account, and don't also use that for your LinkedIn account. If any one of those services gets hacked, those passwords will be put out on the web. Hackers will take them and they just try them against every single service. If you reuse your password, you're basically letting any one service you use have access to anything if that gets disclosed. Now, I understand that it can be pretty difficult to remember all these hard to guess non-reused passwords that are unique for each one. I would encourage you to look up a password manager. There's dozens and dozens out there, so I'm not going to recommend any one particular brand, but take a look. The idea behind this is you install this password manager and you only need to remember one master password. And then from there, the software will keep track of all the rest of your passwords for you. Some of them will even check to make sure that they haven't been disclosed. Some of them will tell you how weak or how strong they are. All sorts of great tools built in there. Also, limit and track the use of shared passwords. For example, your business email account. Who knows the password to that? If they leave, do you know where and how to change it? If someone falls for a phishing account, do you know how to change it? While we're talking about changing passwords, make sure you're changing the default passwords on all of your devices. Many devices out of the box come with very simple passwords that are well known. Those need to be changed by you. Final thing is to use MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. If you're not familiar with that, stay tuned. In just a moment, Bruce is going to tell you everything you need to know about that. Finally, make sure that you keep your systems updated, update them now and keep them updated. Don't overlook devices like routers, smart devices, industrial controls, printers. So we're talking software, hardware, cell phones, anything that you have that connects to the internet, make sure you're keeping those updated. And the final thing I'd love for you to do today is to have a plan. Get backups, test your backups. Think about it from a point of view, if you lost access to all of your computers, all of your data, all of your email, all of your websites, how long can your business survive? Think through your operations today, document your top priorities so you know how to restore them, and then make a plan for getting your contact information for your IT department, your legal department, that may be a factor depending on your industry, insurance if you've got cyber insurance, and for serious cases, law enforcement. So that's about it for me for time today. I'm not sure if we have any questions. My contact information is on the slide. Feel free to reach out to me or through our website, and we will be happy to help you out as best we can. Thanks very much.
All right, thanks very much, Dave. We do actually have a couple of questions. So someone is asking in regards to, oh, I just dropped it. Hold on one second, sorry. Google has a password manager. Is this safe to use?
You're going to get a different answer from everyone. Generally speaking, Google does a pretty good job of encrypting your passwords. However, there are a lot of catches to that. I would say if you're going to use the Google Password Manager, the big thing you need to do is on your Google account is absolutely, without question, make sure you have multi-factor authentication turned on for your Google account. Google being cloud can be accessed from anywhere in the world. So if your main password to get in is weak, everything else is weak behind it.
Okay, and there's a second question. Is there insurance coverage for internet incursions?
Absolutely. Obviously, I am not an insurance agent, so I can't give you specifics, but there are absolutely, they call them cyber insurance riders. The costs for them vary. If you decide to buy that, make sure you read it carefully and talk to whoever in your company has IT expertise. A lot of the times, the insurance providers will not pay if you have not done your due diligence. So don't think you can just buy cyber insurance and be good. You also need to prove in many cases that you've updated your systems or you're not being careless. Just like, you know, any other, you're not going to get covered for fire insurance if you're storing barrels of gasoline inside your office as well.
That's great. Thanks very much, Dave. We appreciate it. Bruce, we can open up the floor to you, and you can start with your screen sharing, please.
Good, thank you. All right, so hopefully we've got the slide visible here for multi-factor authentication. Thank you, Dave, for setting up. So hopefully everybody pays attention and I can be brief for what we're talking about. I'm alongside with Dave in terms of password keepers. If you're using your browser as your password keeper, secure it properly, use multi-factor authentication, and then you can be worry-free. Understand what you're doing. So quickly, we'll walk through the world of multi-factor authentication here. As we go, I've already been introduced. I'm Bruce May, Vice President of IT Services here at Nasdaq Technologies. I've been wallowing around in IT for 20 plus years, as has Dave. Our focus here as a company is to be an IT consultant, give our clients good advice and to keep them safe. So what is multi-factor authentication? We're going to cover what it is, why you need it, when you need it, where you need it, and how you need it. And we'll go quickly through those things. Big reason right here, this is it. Passwords are no longer enough to keep you safe. We're going to touch on why that is so important right now. Breached accounts and leaked accounts mean that your password is already out there and being published on the dark web. And if it isn't, they're actively trying to harvest it right now. This is a statistic from Have I Been Pawned? Have I Been Pawned is a website that collects published data and provides a lookup service for you so you can actually check your email accounts and other usernames and passwords, test against them to see if what you're using for credentials are actually published. So there's the bottom line right now. We have 8 billion people on the planet and better than 11 billion published harvested accounts. Why MFA? The other reason is spear phishing. Dave's talked about this. Targeted methods of approaching you and getting you to give up your credentials now leads to about 95% of the ransomware attacks. If we can give you something and cause you to give up your credentials, we have a way into a network. Then we can burrow in and do damage behind the scenes and go undetected until we're ready to strike. So weak passwords, leaked passwords, phishing attempts, insider attacks all allow unauthorized access to your network, data theft, and potentially ransomware. And I really want to underscore ransomware because that's where the money is for the bad guys right now. You're going to lose data, you're going to have to recover, you're going to have to repair your network, you're going to deal with insurance complications and potentially a loss of business as your brand gets tarnished. To touch on what Dave said for cyber insurance is becoming more and more common. The problem with cyber insurance is it's not going to cover all the damage done during a ransomware attack. They're going to spend money or provide funds to allow you to recover your data. However, your network is going to need to be rebuilt. That's not covered under the cyber insurance. As an example of cyber insurance, this was newsworthy in the summer. Colonial Pipeline in the United States was attacked May 9th. It took till May 15th to bring their systems online, so they lost production and didn't provide petroleum products from Texas up to the Northeast coast for 6 days. It was newsworthy because of what happened at the pumps. The ransomware was $5 million. The method to get into this network was using a username and a password that was already published in other databases on the dark web. The individual had used the same password in multiple locations. these guys can get into the network and did affect the Colonial Pipeline network and do a lot of damage. Again, more statistics on the rise about ransomware. This is the end result for most of these things now. If we're not getting into your website and hacking it that way, we want into your network to gather your information. Again, another sample here from what Dave spoke about with a OneDrive link. You receive an email with a OneDrive link. It asks for your credentials to open the document. Without questioning, most people will provide their credentials and move on and give their information to a hacker. When you provide credentials, you have no idea whether it's a good guy or a bad guy, unless you have multi-factor authentication in there. That is your indicator as to what's going on. So why MFA? We want compliance. You've got PIPEDA and other acts that you must follow. Most industries are governed as well beyond that as to what they have to do. You've got liability because you've got to protect your client's information. We're dealing with data theft, whether that is harvesting your client's database, trade secrets, other things like that. You don't want to give away the information that you've worked so hard to secure in your business. And insurance requirements. It is becoming a requirement for cyber insurance policies now to have MFA. The trend right now in 2021 is they're gently asking about it. I'm going to predict that by the end of 2022, they're going to be requiring it. So passwords just aren't enough. It's time for an upgrade. And we're going to talk about how you do that. Solutions come with really three things we can do. We want good passwords. Dave's spoken about that. We need strong passwords, complex characters. They need to be unique and never shared. So no common passwords amongst your staff or your team, because somebody's going to leave that sticky note somewhere. They need to be unique for each site. We'll talk about that. And when I talk about unique, it's one website for one password. That means your online banking, your Facebook account, your Gmail account, your company webmail, all have different passwords in place. And the third is use multi-factor authentication wherever possible. Talk quickly about what MFA, in its simplest terms, it's something you know plus something you have. So something you know is usually your password, and something you have is an object of some sort that can be used to identify you as you. Think of that as a security badge. Normally that's a password plus an app on a mobile device that's going to give you that second identifier. So some of the ways we can do that, mobile devices with an app or a random number generator, key fob with a number generator, fingerprints, all the biometrics that we're using, sometimes to unlock our phones now, and then also hardware keys, such as a YubiKey, which is a USB device you plug in and say, this is me when you're logging on. So all of those things, the same thing, password plus an object to get authenticated. When do we want to do this? Now. Where? Everywhere, sooner the better. So locations on the internet that you want to do this, anywhere you've got online banking, webmail, commerce sites, Microsoft 365 if you're using web apps, social media, and anything accessible from the internet. This touches on what Dave was talking about with cameras. We don't want people entering your network without proving they are who they claim to be because of bad credentials. Web accounts, look for what's possible on every site you can. So Gmail, Outlook, Facebook, LinkedIn, everybody is offering multi-factor authentication. LinkedIn was the leader in breaches. LinkedIn has since caught up and become pretty solid for using multi-factor authentication for their accounts. They most will take an authenticator app. The authenticator app will generate a 6-digit code on your phone. You key that in when you're logging in. You don't have to do that every time, just the first time you start a session. And then quite often they'll prompt you to say, remember this computer. And now your computer becomes your trusted device, so you don't have to do that a second time. Sometimes there's a hardware token involved. You'll see that with accounting firms. And last resort sometimes is to send you a code by SMS. This is not preferred. It's an older technology. It is prone to interception, but it also will work where necessary. For Microsoft 365, you can use Microsoft's Authenticator app. There are third-party apps such as Duo that will also integrate. You get a pop-up message on your phone, push the yes button, and you're in. Away you go. You can also use the traditional Authenticator apps and 6-digit codes. What's important with these pop-ups when you're authenticating on a device is that you're getting a pop-up because you logged on. That should happen every time. You're authenticating it and approving it. We've seen situations where people have got a pop-up when they didn't do anything, and they've allowed people to use that account. So people need to understand the tools as well as what they're doing. So for covering VPN access, and this is how you get at those cameras that Dave was showing off. When you are outside of a network and you're renting a network, and you're usually connecting via VPN. Quite often with the cameras, they're not even using a VPN now. Part of that VPN process, when I log on to that network with my username and credentials, I want my phone in place or a hardware token of some kind to say, yes, this is really me. Because if I give away that piece of information, I can get into the net, and somebody can get into the network, they can do a lot of damage. This ties right back to that colonial pipeline attack. Most of the large ransomware jobs out there are a result of a leaked credential or a harvested credential getting into a network and then working their plan. As an extension of that, you can also look at using multi-factor authentication on the mobile computers that are out there. So I'm not going to be able to log onto that notebook unless I prove that I'm me. Then I can't get at my VPN unless I can also prove that I'm me. Couple quick steps, pressing yes on the screen and I'm in, but to the rest of the world, I become impenetrable. We've also seen in high security environments where we actually do the same thing, anywhere somebody can sit down and log on to a computer on a network. There's no way into the network, inside or outside, or through Wi-Fi once you do that. Bottom line, passwords aren't enough. It's time for an upgrade. Really, that's pretty much it. If you've got questions, now's the time to look at doing that. Certainly would encourage questions. If you have questions you want to take it on offside, we can do that. Certainly throw me an email. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thanks very much, Bruce. So everyone now has provided their personal email addresses or their contact information. I just want to remind everybody as well that, please feel free to use the Be Connected on the quintech.org website. And, if you want to become a member, if you're in the tech field, please feel free to send something through Be Connected. If you've got some questions, do the same thing as well. Or you can contact Bruce, Dave, or Ken singularly. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. It was very informative information. We really appreciate it. And Jill, and to the chambers, thank you very much. And that's the end. And we're within a nice time frame, so everyone can get to their next meetings.
For sure. Well, thank you all so much. I just want to recap a couple of things, because that was a lot of information. Like you said, Delilah, there's a ton of stuff in there. And I think when we talked about it last week and how we would advertise this so that people understand the importance of, this doesn't seem like a big deal until it is. And I would say that anybody who has experienced the concept of a ransomware attack, even some of those phishing schemes where, hey, are you there? Can you go get me a gift card? That email phishing scam. One poor girl that I know of thought she was getting that email from me, spent $1,200 buying up gift cards because she thought I'd asked her to do that. And I think going back to the point that the leadership has to kind of engage with staff about what the risks are and where they exist is also part of it. But sometimes we don't know. So anyway, for everybody who's here today, thank you for joining us. Do a quick check on your mxtoolbox.com, Google Transparency Report, check to see if you've been pawned. And those are the things that we start with. And then just to tie this up, if you find that some of your information has been compromised with one of those things, what's the next best step? Who do I call?
That is a hard question because it varies every single time, right? It depends on what information has been taken. It depends on what information you're protecting. Depends on the industry, depends on whether you're insured. So I wish there was a quick answer. Generally speaking, I think it's safe that all of us would agree that at the minimum, you're probably going to want to change your password, enable MFA, and check for updates so that you don't have any more damage going in. And then I would probably encourage you to contact maybe someone on this call who can help you a little bit deeper.
Yeah, you might also want to just go to the quintech.org website. There's a whole group of tech experts that are part of the QTA, and depending upon the type of concern you have, they may be able to direct you to the best tech expert to help you with the situation.
I'll just jump in for a second with a comment. My advice to anybody with a network is that you need to partner with some expertise, a local IT consulting firm, or somebody you can partner with beyond that. Get good advice. If you are in a problem, don't wait. Talk to them right away. They're going to help you deal with that problem. And ideally, you've already got a disaster plan in place that helps you with the first steps. But get good advice. Talk to the businesses that you deal with, see what they're doing, make sure the advice you're getting matches what they're getting, or perhaps you need a new advisor.
Okay. Just two final comments. So the presenters did a great job. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Excuse me, for the information that you provided today. Again, a lot of information, but it's relevant. And the other point that I wanted to make too is that I'd referred to the Be Connected on the quintech.org website, and this isn't just for business owners. As I had mentioned, I pulled up, or I had, sorry, the one slide that includes anybody who is a tech specialist within or any organization. So whether it's the auto industry, a different type of manufacturing industry, et cetera. If there's anybody on here today that wants to become a member, please feel free to get connected with us. And thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Okay, perfect. And to the other question, we will have the recording made available. We'll send it out to all of the participants, and then it will also be posted, a link to our YouTube channel through our next chamber chat. And I'll send that to Delilah so she can make it available to anybody who's not a member.
Thanks very much, Joe. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Joe.